Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today on Happy Thrive Vibe. You are in for a wonderful guest that we have here today. And we have Miss Tracy. She's our guest. She is a wife, mom, caretaker, an educator turned marketing executive. And that is definitely her niche. She's in Winter Garden, Florida. She's also walked the path of surviving to thriving. And after learning of a life altering, devastating health diagnosis, for her husband that brought her to her knees, Tracy set forth on an unintended journey to redefine her relationships, faith, career, and outlook on life. And from everything I've ever known, I've known Tracy for years. She's never looked back. She only looks forward and tries to figure out the best way through it and helping other people find the best way through it in their lives together. So, welcome, Tracy. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, Laura. Happy to be here.
I'm so excited. So, I think we'll dive into
The event.
the parts that were the most challenging. We're gonna go slow.
Yeah.
I would
Should
like you to
we?
share
Yeah.
there. I mean, in we hear all the time of educators turning into second careers, doing other things. And
hmm
I'm actually, my first career was business, so I'm the opposite of you. I came
Yep.
from business to education, and then you went from education to marketing. You've been an executive. You've done all kinds of things. You've helped run
hmm
businesses with enrollments, analytics, you name it, you've done it.
hmm
So it's quite a transformation, though, from being a teacher in the classroom. So can you share specific moments when you realized that you were going to have a shift in your career path?
For sure. And I would have to tell you, when I say it was unintended, that's really true. And because it takes me back to, when Chris was diagnosed, and I would describe myself as kind of like the supporting cast, so to speak. Not to say that we didn't have an equal relationship. Chris is my husband, and his diagnosis is the one that kind of took our family on this journey. Um, but I would call myself like the supporting role, so to speak. He was the breadwinner, right? And I, was going to work in education, and we all know that there are limitations to what we will make, and kind of, what we can do in that space.
And half your paycheck
Um,
goes to your classroom.
exactly, yes. And so I had to kind of reimagine, like, you're in that survival mode when Chris got sick and he was not going to be returning to work. Like, that was not an option, and our income was cut in half. And so it was just about kind of forcing myself to learn new skills and take on new challenges and find ways to carve out my career path in ways that I never even imagined that I would do. I mean, I was an English major. What do you do with an English major? You teach, right? That's what you do. And I mean, granted, I was with Florida Virtual School, and was able to experience other roles within that organization, which was fantastic and kind of set me on that role for wanting a little bit more. But I was still pretty comfortable in what I was doing. But when he got sick, it was one of those things. It's like, okay, I'm in survival mode now, and I have to provide for my family, or we're packing up, we're moving, and I'm disrupting my children even more so than they've already been disrupted. So I found myself in an admissions role, related but different. And in that role, just like I said, learned new systems, learned customer relation management, CRMs, and just always trying to one up myself and figure out, like, how can I not be supporting cast anymore, but how can I kind of sit at the table with with the decision makers and they're real influencers, and kind of become not the supporting cast anymore, but kind of the leader, and support my family in a way that I needed to move forward. And I found that I did really enjoy the marketing side of
And you're
education.
so
And
good at it. I mean,
yeah,
you can tell that it's your natural niche because you're so good at it just naturally.
mhm. And it also aided me, like, during admissions, we did that for 5 years, and it was great, and it served me so incredibly well. And then this opportunity presented itself to me, and I am absolutely loving it. Like, I've never been happier in a job in my life. Not to say I did not love working with you, Laura, and all the team there, but it was a part of my path to where I am now. And I'm loving learning new things about marketing and advertising and public relations, but taking all of that and applying it to the education space. It's like this perfect
Oh, it's a perfect marriage because you're
marriage.
full
Yeah.
circle. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
you have the marketing knowledge, so you know how to identify the target audience, you know how to reach them,
Mm-hmm.
but you also know the whole cyclical cycle of a school. You know
Mm-hmm.
the challenges that the teachers face, you know the
Mm-hmm.
challenges that the parents face with enrolling, with maintaining, and then you also have the background not only of brick and mortar, but also digital before you even came
Mm-hmm.
here. So I
Right.
mean, you're able to, so basically your superhero strength is your ability to do it all. You
I don't
know
know
all the
about
aspects
that.
of it, so it does help.
I'm learning new things every day. I mean, the whole nuts and bolts of the digital marketing piece and everything that goes into building a campaign and growing all those enrollments beyond what I was doing before has definitely been a learning curve, but it's been really fun. And I'm really happy to be where I am now.
Well, and I think coming from two innovative schools that we both worked at, it helps
Mm-hmm.
us think outside of the box. And so I mean, you already think outside of the box, and being able to have that liberty of thinking outside of the box to be able to reach families. I mean, we've done more with technology this year in reaching families than we did before,
Mm-hmm.
just by finding out what was available and how to best reach families in order to market to them, to because
And
we
we
believe
still
in our
have,
school, not just
right,
to market, but we believe in our school.
in the product. And, I still have so many ideas, right? And we're kind of always bound by time. You can only do so much at a time. So big things to come. I've got great ideas.
You do have great ideas. I love hearing about them. And when you get a twinkle in your eye in meetings, and then I'm like, oh, here it comes, here it
She's
comes.
thinking,
Tracy's on a roll
gears are
again.
turning.
Couldn't sleep this morning.
Yes.
Well, overcoming a life-altering health diagnosis for anyone in your family at all, even
Mm-hmm.
for a friend. I mean, I have friends that I feel like I'm going through things right alongside of them, is
Mm-hmm.
undoubtedly just a formidable challenge. How
Mm-hmm.
did this experience shape your perspective on life? How did it help you rearrange your priorities? And then what strategies did you use that you didn't even realize you were using to navigate such a challenging period?
Right. Well, it's about 7 years ago, and my husband was diagnosed with brain cancer, and not just a little, like, it was not a small event. It was a very large event that definitely was life altering to our family, as I said. And I think that for a while you were just in this survival mode. Like, I have to be caretaker to him. I have to be caretaker to my children. And I think back to those times, and honestly, I remember them very vividly, but I also feel like I was a little bit like just floating the over the top of my life at that time, like looking down almost, because I had such an amazing support system. And I really feel as though during that time I was like lifted and carried like to the next step, so to speak, right? I had amazing people in my life that definitely were looking out for me. And like, especially when I did take off time while I was caring for him through his active treatment. And it got to be the time when I came to ASU, and we were able to I was able to work in that environment and with those folks again that loved me so well during that time and offered me the opportunity to join their team. It gave me a little bit of a different focus after being home and just being mom and wife and caretaker for 7 months, where all you lived and was in a home that was dealing with cancer, right? And that's sad, right? It's really sad, and but you get tired of being a sad story, to be quite honest. And it's you just it gets you have to decide that that's not going to be your forever, right? You have to find ways to chart your path forward. And I
Well, and you
still
had
do
little
that.
ones looking at you to see how you were
Correct.
reacting and how you were charting forward yourself.
Right. Yeah. And you can't, it's not a linear process, right? Sometimes it's around the bend and two steps
Mm-hmm.
backward and four steps forward. And when I say it's a journey, it really, really was. So having that, going into that environment with good people and challenging myself to new ways, like I said, like, he was not going back to work, and income was not what we were able to experience in the past. Like, it was strategy. It was strategy, and it was still very much survival mode. But finding those glimmers of who, of happiness, with the people that I surrounded myself with. And I had to learn to edit my life quite a bit. I'm an extrovert. I was a Pinterest mom. I would be class mom. Like, I would like to do the things. I like to, be like a creative gift giver, and, just all of these things that made me who I am. Like Chris and I were very much a balance of each other. He was the bills. He made sure the doors were locked at the end of the night. Like, he just took care of the house, and he took care of all these things. And then suddenly, like, I was doing all of the things, and I had to learn to let go of some parts that really defined who I was at that time, right? And redefine who I was going to be moving forward. And that was challenging. That was really, really challenging. The edit piece was probably the most difficult because I cherish my relationships and my friendships so much. But the people who are core to me, and I know that, I might not answer your text for 3 weeks, like, don't take it personally. It's just the way life is, and they still love me anyway. Those are the people that I kind of held really, really, really dear. And
Well,
I'm
those
not,
same people
not,
were, I'm sure, rallying around you
yeah.
and not only understanding, but just offering to help. But it's so
Mm-hmm.
hard when you're in the middle of it and someone asks how they can help. It's so hard to understand how they can even help. So I'm sure that you had family and friends who just knew what you needed and did the best that they could to help.
Amazing people. Like, I would not have been able to do it without my support system. Absolutely. And then, so you're in the survival mode for a really long time. And I don't know if you remember this, Laura, but my daughter was in a car accident. And I mean, granted, she was fine, but it was a pretty major car accident that did land her in the hospital for a little bit. And like, she's so lucky. That specific event, though, is kind of what really rattled me and made me take pause that I needed to focus on myself a little bit. Like, I was not okay. I was holding it together, but I was not well. I was not okay. And I took a
Is
little
that the
time.
moment you realized it when that
Yeah.
happened with your daughter?
Mm-hmm. I could not think about work. I could not, my mindset just totally shifted in that moment where it was just too much, too much at that moment. And, um, it made me take pause, reevaluate and assess, and also look inward to say, okay, I've been taking care of him and I've been taking care of them. And this is, by the way, is not to discredit Chris's journey at all. I mean, obviously I can't even imagine what it's like to be him in his shoes. By the way, he's been stable for 7 years. So let's celebrate that.
Oh, absolutely.
So, I just couldn't, I needed to look to help me because I was probably hiding a lot of how I felt inward, not only from myself, but from all of the other people
You
as
probably
well.
went on autopilot just to help protect
Absolutely.
yourself. You can only handle so
Yeah.
much trauma at one time.
Right. And it's one of those times you're like, okay, well, what is it that Tracy really needs at this time? And I think that we need to learn to give ourselves grace, right? Like, that was a hard lesson to teach myself, is to say, it is okay if you order out 5 nights in a row. It is okay if you go on a drive because you just want to be by yourself and process what is going on. And you know what? And it is okay if you need medication to be able to move forward. Like, that was also an acceptance. So yeah, that was a kind of a bend in the road, I would say, but for the better, for sure.
And are you back to your Pinterest ways of Christmas
No,
presents to the children's teachers and all of those fun things that you used to do? Or is that another era that you give yourself grace and you do what you
I give
can when you
myself
can?
grace. I give myself grace. I try to be thoughtful for as much as I can. But yeah, I still have a way to go to get back to who I was. I don't think I'll ever be back to who I was, to be quite honest. I don't know if you've ever done Myers-Briggs. Of course you did Myers-Briggs. I was
Yeah.
a 30 on the extrovert scale. Like, I'm a people person and I'm the wooer and all of the things. Um, and I would be interested to take that test now, because I probably would not be a 30 these days, because I do relish my inward time, because I think I do have a lot to process in my personal life and to take stock of. So
I feel like you're still a 30. you're pretty extraordinarily outgoing, Tracy. So,
Maybe.
but it doesn't change that you can appreciate it more. I'm an introvert,
Yeah.
so I totally get that. And, but yeah, no, you're pretty outgoing. You're pretty
I love
outgoing.
that you're an introvert and you're doing this. This is amazing.
This is outside of my comfort zone. It is why I've wanted to do it for 5 years and
Mhm.
never did. It is why I started a blog 3 different times on 3 different platforms, but never hit the publish button, because I feel like it's just exposing a part of myself that I have never done before. And it is not, I never thought it could be my jam, but it is.
Yeah.
And I love
Yeah.
it.
I love the
I do love it. But I
vulnerability
think,
and
I,
the risk, you know?
but that I think the risk is worth the reward. And that's why I finally
Hmm.
did it. Because the one thing that I've felt when I connect with other people is that everyone needs to have that feeling that they're not the only one that has these thoughts and has these fears and has these
Hmm.
insecurities. So I think the more people I can talk to who are just regular people who can share how they made their way through it can help other
Right.
people.
I hope so. That's my hope. When I saw that you were doing this, I was like, maybe this is a good time for me to share my story. And if maybe someone else is either just starting on this journey, or they're in the thick of it, there is a
Well, and
light.
I've heard too
There's
that
definitely a
writing
light.
your own what autobiography is just supposed to be therapeutic and healing too,
Oh,
just to
that's
talk about your
cathartic.
own story. And I don't think I'm there yet. That's why I'm interviewing people for them to tell their story. And I don't really tell I tell my story like intermittently throughout, but I think it does feel healing when you
Hmm.
do say the words and you get it out, because sometimes just keeping it all in makes it feel heavy.
For sure. For sure.
So
Absolutely.
so in your bio that you shared with me, that I shared at the beginning
Hmm.
here, you mentioned redefining your relationships, faith, and career. So can you talk about how they all kind of intertwine during your journey, and what advice you have for others facing similar challenges in multiple areas of their life?
Sure. So as far as my faith goes, I should probably mention this part because I think it's probably what rattled my faith the most. So Chris was diagnosed with a very rare brain tumor 18 months after his brother died from the same very rare brain tumor that's
Oh
not
my gosh,
supposed to
that
be
part I did not
genetic.
know.
Yes. He was younger than Chris. And so imagine that phone call to his parents.
No.
They have two children. And so when I'm telling them that, you know, he has a brain tumor, it's like awful. So I think that's the thing that really, like, how could this happen to one family? And I think that there's a lot of people who probably enter in these challenging times in their life. They're like, why me? Like, why is this happening? Right. And I had this in the very, very beginning. I can remember, no, actually, it was before he was diagnosed. This is an interesting story. Um, I actually quit my job before Chris was diagnosed because things were not well at home. His personality changed and he was acting erratically, and it was, something was wrong. I knew something was wrong. He wasn't doing anything about it. And it was to the point where I worried about him being home alone with our kids. And something was wrong. And it was the day we went to the doctor and the doctor ordered the MRI, and we went to downtown Winter Garden and we were just browsing the shops. I've never not had a job since I was 13 years old. Like, I've always worked. And there was this sign in the store, and it just is this sign. It says, "Be still." That's it. Just black sign, white letters, "Be still." And I was like, I don't know why I feel like I need to have this sign. I'm like, I should not be spending any money right now because I just quit my job. But I feel like I need to have this. Like, I need to have the reminder. Like, there's a reason why I was called to quit my job. And I need this as a reminder that I need to just be still for a little while, and it's going to make sense. So I bought that. So it's up on my wall in the other room. And throughout several moments, different people, that verse or phrase has shown up in my life at really poignant moments. And I think it's a reminder just to be still. And I worked with this one gal who is very faithful, very religious. She tells me every day that I'm in her prayer circle in the morning, and which I'm so grateful that she prays for me. And she said to me, this is not just Chris's journey. She says, this is
Mm-hmm.
yours. and this is something that you need to go through and understand, and there's something for you to learn here. And then she said, be still. And I was like, God, like so many God
Oh my
moments, like God
gosh.
winks throughout the way. And so my faith is different. I'm not going to church every day. I feel like I have my own spiritual connection with God. But yeah, he sends me signs, or she sends me signs, God winks along the way to let me know that just keeps me in check, I would say.
I love that. I love when I get my signs too. I see quite a few over and over and over, and I'm like, okay, I got it.
Yep. Yep.
Because I'm the type of person where
Point taken.
I can't just have a sign like, oh, a butterfly went by and its wings had some purple. Like that means something. No, I need something concrete. And you
Yes.
can't get more concrete than, words on a sign in front of
Words on
you.
a sign. And someone sent me a bracelet that it was like stamped on a bracelet, and it was be still. And then someone gave me a journal and it had the same words on it. And it was like one of these things that was just, like little, I don't know, God winks all along the way.
I like that term too, God winks. I'll probably steal that now. I like
you
that.
can. There's actually a book called God Winks. It's a nice little read, to be quite honest. You should have a read on that one. It's good.
I will.
I'll send it to you. Actually, I'll get your address after this because I have it.
So becoming a mom and caretaker, it adds unique layers. So how did the roles influence your pursuit and thriving? I know when I lost my dad, I inherited my brother. At the time I was 25. So I really didn't have time to, spiral down. He was watching me. So I know how that felt for me. But how do you feel like those responsibilities actually helped you maintain a positive path for what you had to go through? And then what do you think that they've learned from watching you go through that and lead the way?
So my kids, when Chris was diagnosed, my youngest was 7. And then Aiden was 12 and my daughter was 15. And my poor 15-year-old, like she was just thrust into, I feel like, adulthood very
Being
young, because I needed her, right? Like she was weeks away from getting her license, probably not ready to get her license. So I'm like, get your license. Like I need you to take yourself to all your things. And, with Tierna being 7, he saw some behaviors from Chris that were really unsettling for him, and trying to make sure that my kids understood what was happening in ways that were appropriate developmentally, and have conversations. I also have my middle son does have autism, and he tends to really fixate and worry, and the whole genetic aspect of it just had him spiraling. And so when you see those aspects of your kids, you see your kids struggling in different ways. It was like their burdens obviously are going to become my burdens, and I'm going to put them before myself. So just kind of coaching them through those different situations and reassuring them that, that wasn't your dad, that was the tumor that made him say those things or do those things. And you have nothing to worry about, like showing statistics of the chance of this being genetically connected.
Well,
And
it probably helped both of you too, because you had to have been thinking those same things.
You're right. You're really right. You're actually right. I mean, I never even thought about it that way, but I probably need that reassurance myself. We looked into ways, like how can we be part of more studies, right? There's a familial glioma study that we joined just to see if we can be part of the solution, right? Part of the cure, or hopefully someday. So just, working together and really talking really openly. I feel like my relationship with my daughter is really open and honest, and I think she gets me like really well, and I get her really well. And like I said, she's wise beyond her years. She's 22 now. And I think it's because she endured what she did. Like I feel like sometimes when she's with people her own age, like I don't know.
She must just think like, oh my gosh, you just worried about the most ridiculous things, because we were like fighting for our lives over here.
Right. And it's made her like she's very connected to the boys. sometimes they very much push her away because she had that role of like mini mom. They're like, back off. But at the same time, I know that they secretly adore her too. And I think they will be closer because of it, especially as they get older, because they've endured this together, right? I mean, their experiences, while they're a little bit different because their ages are different, we've gone through all of this together as a family. So there's something to be said for that.
And I'm sure it certainly makes all of your children more empathetic to others who may appear different or may appear that there's a medical condition or just people who are struggling. I think once you go through something like that, it just you have an innate ability to be empathetic to a whole nother level that you don't even realize.
Right.
Before you didn't know because you didn't know. So you didn't know how it felt. Now you know how it feels.
Right.
So you immediately are just more empathetic.
Like, I think it kind of like thrust my daughter into really wanting to work with kids with special needs. I mean, she has a brother with special needs, and she saw like so many struggles that he went through, not even related to Chris, but just like in general. And so, she worked with kids with special needs quite a bit. And now she's teaching infant swim survival, which I think is pretty amazing.
That is amazing. I saw that.
Yeah.
That's pretty incredible.
Pretty cool.
It is.
Pretty cool thing.
So the podcast focuses on manifesting the life that you love. How, I guess not how, but what could you share with people who, like, the words of wisdom that stuck with you through your hardest and darkest times? What are some of those that you feel like other people who are listening might be able to benefit from?
I think you have to just realize that every day is a gift. I mean, the fact that Chris was given weeks and he's here, 7 years later is a remarkable miracle. And there are little miracles that happen all of the time. And you have to be still, and you have to take pause, and you have to see the moments for where they are. Every 3 months, I'm going to have what I call scan anxiety. That is when we have a scan. And I think to myself, is the other shoe going to drop, right? Is this going to be the time? But at the same time, I feel completely prepared. Not that it's going to, if something were to happen, I have my eyes wide open. Like, I could never be so shocked as I was that one day again. I think that was my worst. So no day could be worse than that moment and the days after. So it's just a moment in time. Chris, if you talk to Chris, he'll say, his phrase is, "I'm living the dream." Here's a guy who has had his world rocked, and he'll tell you he's living the dream. So there's so much hurt and violence and just so many other things going on in the world that this is a blip in the radar comparatively.
Well, but you brought up an interesting point. What kind of advice do you think that Chris would give? Because Chris is the one that went through this himself with his own, knowing that his younger brother passed away from the same thing. And sometimes it's hard for the person who's going through it because they're watching the effect it has on the people they love. So what kind of advice do you think that he would give others who are kind of going through the same thing? Maybe not the same exact type of thing, but something similar. Just a hard situation in medical or financial, whatever their hardship is at the moment.
So part of his journey is to very much reconnect with faith. He does go to church every Sunday. That has been something that he has really latched onto. And I think that things that I've heard him say over and over again. Number one, that it is what it is. This is the deal that you're dealt, and I can either wallow in it and have it really pull me down, or I can enjoy and appreciate the people and the experiences they have in front of me. He wants to travel. He wants to travel all the time. Like, we don't have that much money to travel all the time. He said to me the other day, he's like, exactly. Yeah. He said, I want to go to Munich. Like, this was to go to Oktoberfest, but he's telling me this in September or end of August. I'm like, okay,
but see, North Carolina has like a German town that they do Oktoberfest. Like, I can help you make these things happen here in the United States. We can find those same activities he wants to go to abroad right here.
I was like, we got a great brewery in downtown Winter Garden that if you want some lederhosen, I'm sure there's other people down there with
Yeah.
it on. But he very much wants to experience life and things. He wants to go to concerts. Like, so he's very much I don't think he thinks about what's come, like what is to come or what could happen or all of the what ifs. It's here, it's happened. And so
Yeah, he's had worst case scenario.
exactly. And like I said, there's not moments where I never see him get, well, actually he does get really emotional because that's just part of where his tumor is. He cries at a lot of things like at Publix commercials and stuff, but who doesn't? A lot of
Oh
people
my
do that.
gosh, who
But
doesn't cry at Publix
yeah,
commercials, please, especially around the
yeah,
holidays.
he does get emotional. But like I there are times where I do find myself and I have to have my time, right? But the one thing I do not allow myself to stay there for very long because it can be crippling. It can just like kind of suck you in. And I'm not saying that I think that there's a people who will say like happiness is a choice. And yes, and don't think that doesn't mean that you can't you need don't need any help to get there, right? Like I think that I would probably be very different if I once again if I wasn't on medication or if I didn't have the people around me that I could call and just say I'm really having a sad day and then have that be that person that lifts me out of it. So I don't know, I struggle with that a little bit when I hear people say happiness is a choice. Well, for some people it's not just a choice, it's a process to get there. And I think you have to be
Right. I think it
supported.
is an intentionality, but I think
Mm-hmm.
it's just more than just waking up and going, I'm going to choose to be happy today. Because when you're in the
Exactly.
middle of unhappy,
Mm-hmm.
it's it takes a lot to overcome that. It's
Mm-hmm.
exhausting and it's stressful. And honestly, when you're in it, you don't a lot of times you don't even realize that you're in it and that you need
Mm-hmm.
to make that choice for yourself because you're
Right.
just it's hard to see things when you're in the middle of it sometimes.
You give yourself the grace, the space, and then you move forward. And I do that often, but I feel very satisfied and happy and thriving in my life right now, where my kids are and how they are and how Chris is doing and where we are as a family. So I don't know. It's been good.
Good. Well, thank you for
Sometimes I
sharing
don't
your
know.
story.
Sometimes I don't know how I found myself here, but I'm here. I do know. I do know. I love the reflective like opportunity to think about it more
Well, it sounds
intentionally
like
or talking about it.
a lot of reflection has gone into how you got here and how you're able to even talk
Mm,
about it right now and process because you're even when you're talking, you're processing, you're trying to articulate how
yeah.
you
Mm-hmm.
felt. And that is, I mean, I think I would just be, I don't even know how I would find myself on the other
Yeah.
side of that. I've never had to have had to go through anything like that.
This is the first time I've ever talked about it like in this kind of format or forum. I've obviously had conversations with the people in my life, but it's been good. I appreciate it. Hopefully I wasn't too rambly.
No, you're not rambly at all. And actually, I appreciate it. I think there's a lot of people who are going through things right now and they just need
Mm-hmm.
to give themselves permission to go through it. And I think they think so much about what other people are thinking of them.
Mm-mm.
And they just need the permission to feel it. And they need
That's a
the
hard
permission that
thing.
it's not, you're not okay right now. And that's okay. That is okay.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So I think I'm
So
hoping that that's the message that you have shared today with people.
I hope so. Thank
Well,
you.
thank you, Tracy. I appreciate your time today.
Thanks. I appreciate being here. Thanks, Laura.
Keep thriving, everybody.